A delayed SpaceX launch is happening tonight. Here's what you need to know. A SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule will take flight this week, carrying 4 astronauts to the International Space Station, where they'll spend 6 months living and working in space. It will be the 4th time SpaceX has sent astronauts to the space station. The Crew Dragon spacecraft is slated to take off atop a Falcon 9 rocket from NASA's Kennedy Space Center at precisely 9:03 p.m. Eastern Time Wednesday, a time chosen because it's the optimal moment to get the spacecraft on track to link up with the ISS. The astronauts will spend a full day on board the spacecraft after it reaches orbit and begins slowly maneuvering toward the ISS, with which it's scheduled to dock at 7:10 p.m. Thursday. SpaceX had intended to launch this mission, called Crew 3, on Halloween. But liftoff was delayed because of some rough weather over the Atlantic Ocean that could have impacted rescue operations if the rocket were to misfire and force the astronauts to make an emergency splashdown landing in the ocean. Crew Dragon's ability to jettison a crew to safety if something goes wrong is one of the reasons the space agency says it is among the safest spacecraft ever flown. Such an emergency exit has never had to be carried out by SpaceX, but having that option, and ensuring a recovery could be smoothly executed, is one of the reasons the space agency says Crew Dragon is among the safest spacecraft ever flown. The flight was then delayed further by a medical issue involving one of the Crew 3 astronauts, according to NASA. The issue was not a medical emergency nor was it COVID-related, the space agency said, though it declined to give further details. The 4 astronauts who make up the Crew 3 team, NASA's Raj Achari, Tom Marshburn, and Kayla Barron, as well as the European Space Agency's Matthias Maurer, will be the first to launch aboard a Crew Dragon since SpaceX's Inspiration 4 mission in September. That mission carried 4 people, none of them professional astronauts, on a 3-day tourism mission that orbited higher than any spacecraft has traveled since the moon landing missions. In a press conference last month, NASA's Commercial Crew Program Manager described the Inspiration 4 mission as a gift because it exposed issues with a key component on the Crew Dragon spacecraft, the toilet, so the problem could be fixed for future NASA missions. SpaceX fixes Crew Dragon toilet before this weekend and #39's launch. SpaceX fixes Crew Dragon toilet before this weekend's launch. The Inspiration 4 crew were alerted to an issue with the onboard toilet's fan, which is used to create suction that is necessary when going to the bathroom in microgravity. After the spacecraft returned home, SpaceX disassembled the capsule and found contamination. There's a storage tank where the urine goes to be stored, and there's a tube that came disconnected or came unglued, said William Gerstenmaier, a former associate administrator at NASA who now works as SpaceX's head of mission assurance, during a press conference last month. That allowed urine essentially to not go into the storage tank, but essentially go into the fan system. The issue also prevented a group of astronauts from using their Crew Dragon spacecraft's onboard toilet during their trek back to Earth from the International Space Station on Monday. The astronauts had found their capsule also had evidence of contamination from a leaky toilet, according to NASA. They were forced instead to rely on undergarments, essentially adult diapers, during their 9-hour return trip. On the brand new Crew Dragon capsule that will fly the Crew 3 mission on Wednesday, SpaceX welded the tube in place to prevent a similar issue. NASA has spent more than a decade working to boost staffing aboard the 21-year-old space station after the retirement of its Space Shuttle program in 2011 left Russia's Soyuz spacecraft as the only option for getting astronauts to and from the ISS. Meet the Crew 3 astronauts. Kayla Barron, who has a master's degree in nuclear engineering from the University of Cambridge, was selected as a NASA astronaut in 2017 and comes directly from a field of work that involves extreme living conditions and long bouts of isolation, submarines. Barron became one of the first women ever to serve on a Navy submarine back in 2010. It wasn't until I had that experience of living and working beneath the surface of the ocean and made the connection to living and working in the vacuum of space and understanding the kind of team it took to do that successfully, Barron told reporters last month. All those parallels are what gave me the confidence to apply for NASA's astronaut corps in the first place. Raja Chari also joined NASA's astronaut corps in 2017 as one of its newest inductees, and this will also mark his first flight to space. He has a master's degree in aeronautics and astronautics from MIT and graduated from the U.S. Naval Test Pilot School, which has a long history of providing a pipeline to the astronaut corps. Chari and Barron have also both been selected for NASA's Corps of Artemis astronauts, who could fly on future missions to the Moon. Barron added that taking a trip to the ISS is the best possible training for us to prepare for an eventual lunar mission, in terms of personal development and the opportunity to learn from experienced people. It also will be the first time in space for Germany's Matthias Maurer of the ESA, who'll have the opportunity to conduct a spacewalk and activate a new robotic arm, which was recently transported to the space station aboard a Russian spacecraft. This arm will be able to bring science payloads through an Russian airlock from the inside of the station towards the outside, and then we will be able to run experiments on the outside without performing a spacewalk, he said. The mission's pilot, NASA's Tom Marshburn, will be the sole veteran astronaut among the crew. He has a background in physics and holds a doctorate of medicine, and he first joined NASA in the early 1990s as a flight surgeon. He joined the official astronaut corps in 2004 and has since flown on one Space Shuttle mission and one Russian Soyuz mission to the ISS. When asked what he's most looking forward to, Marshburn told reporters that certainly one of the pinnacles of your time up on board is having the opportunity to do a spacewalk, but what we're doing day to day in the laboratory is going to be what many of us look forward to the most. The ISS has for 2 decades hosted astronauts from all over the world to conduct scientific research. The space station is unlike any laboratory in the world. In the microgravity environment, physical and biological phenomena aren't bogged down by the Earth's pull. So, doing the same experiment on the station that's been done on the ground can give scientists a better fundamental understanding of how something works. The research the Crew 3 astronauts will oversee includes an attempt to grow a perfect crystal to enhance our understanding of biological processes, a test of the impact of diet on astronaut health, and the testing of a smartphone video guidance sensor for guidance, navigation, and control of the Astrobi free-flying robot.